You're watching the ANEC Sports Podcast on YouTube. The show starts right now.
Welcome to episode 29 of the ANEC Sports Podcast. My name is Sam Frick. I'm the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, covering schools across Northeast Indiana and Elkhart County. And we are now into the month of April, since our last episode came out a couple weeks ago. Most schools are either in spring break or they're going to be just coming out of spring break, as we are now well underway in the spring season, the last leg of the 2024-2025 school year. So let's go ahead and recap with the talk around the corner. We'll go ahead and just briefly recap what took place with the boys basketball state finals, and particularly for Manchester, who is going to be one of 35 new members of ANEC Sports' expanded coverage come next year, as the Manchester Squires win their first ever boys basketball state championship, the first for the county in the sport of basketball ever, as the Manchester Squires came back to defeat University by the score of 59-54. Gavin Bennett and Ethan Hendricks each contributed with 21 points in that contest. Both are heading to Grace College next fall. And Caleb Klein, a player who played through the entire season with an ACL injury, he was named to the Mental Attitude Award for Class 2A. So the Manchester Squires, they bring home a state championship. They bring home a Mental Attitude Award. And the Squires of 2025 will forever be remembered as state champions in North Manchester, Indiana. So congratulations to Manchester Squires on winning the state championship. Also want to give congrats to Orleans in 1A, South Bend St. Joe in 3A, and Jeffersonville in 4A on winning their state championships, as well as now we are officially into the off season for basketball for both the boys and the girls. If you've been following along at ANEC Sports, we are already getting things rolling with the girls basketball off-season series. We've looked at Adams Central, we've looked at Woodland, and we've looked at Angola so far. Expect some additional segments to be posted either tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on how things go with my schedule, as I have recorded segments for Westview, West Noble, and Lakeland. Okay, where was I at? Because apparently there was an interruption during the show. So, again, we will continue our girls basketball all-season series this week. Hopefully we start the boys basketball all-season series later this week, as we will first start off with the original 30 of ANEC Sports' coverage. And then once we get through the 30 schools that have been a part of this coverage for several years now, we will look at some of our new members and look at their off-season and look at where they were at the previous season and look at where things are going to go from there entering next season. As far as the spring season goes, if you've been following along at ANEC Sports, we've had Game of the Week previews for baseball, softball, and boys volleyball. Volleyball is one of the new sports in the IHSA's Library of High School Sports, as boys volleyball is sanctioned for the very first time. Our game of the week so far, or match of the week previews so far, have come from Columbia City. A couple weeks ago, Columbia City and Heritage took part in the first ever ANEC boys volleyball match of the week. Heritage took home the match in a 4 competitive sets, 3-1. In that contest last week, Columbia City played their second conference match. So they took on the Norwell Knights at the Castle. Norwell playing their first ever IHSAA match. Although with Norwell, they've had a history of boys volleyball dating all the way back to the 70s. Columbia City swept Norwell in that contest 3 straight. That came last Tuesday, if I recall. Softball. 2 weeks ago, Leo and Woodland faced off for the first of 2 meetings. That was their first ever ANEC softball game of the week. That was also on a Tuesday. Leo won that game 4-1, and Leah Chappelle pitched a complete game gem, striking out 8 batters in that contest. Last week, it was Fairfield and Northwood in the ANEC softball game of the week, where Fairfield and Northwood took part in a high-scoring affair, and Fairfield came away with a 13-12 victory over the Northwood Panthers. And trying to recall here, but we do have a Fairfield player that is nominated as a finalist for Performer of the Week this week for softball. Give me just a moment here, and I believe that was Presley Calouette, and she had a home run, the first of a few home runs for Fairfield, as the Falcons exchanged lead changes with Northwood, and the Falcons won that game by a single run. Prayers do go out to the Fairfield senior, Adeline Holsopple, who unfortunately saw her season come to an end with a knee injury during that contest, and we wish her the best in her recovery throughout the next several days and weeks and months ahead for her. She was off to such a great start to the season. She was batting .778 prior to the injury. Unfortunately, that's just the reality of the situation here, and we wish her the best in her recovery from there. And then last week was the first ever ANEC baseball game of the week. Heritage and New Haven took part in an East Allen County School rivalry contest at New Haven, where Heritage held off a New Haven rally late and winning that game 4-2, with Justin Taylor recording 3 RBIs in that contest. And then Heritage had a senior pitcher coming back from last season with a rotation that is inexperienced compared to past seasons of Heritage, as that was Cameron Ronner, who picked up the win for the Heritage Patriots. Although for New Haven, coming out of that game, you could say a promising season so far for the pitching in New Haven. The question is, can they score enough runs, and can they play better defense in front of the pitching? And so far, it's been a mixed bag, but the pitching has been consistent so far for New Haven, as they did pick up a win over East Side following that game against Heritage, and then lost a close one at the hands of Whitco in that contest. Looking ahead to this coming week for ANEC Sports' Game of the Week coverage, we will shift over to volleyball for 2 Game of the Week previews. The first one will feature the Northrop Bruins and the Snyder Panthers at Snyder, if I recall. And then you have Carroll and Homestead meeting for the first of 2 meetings. Both matches are taking place on Wednesday. I believe Homestead is at home for the first meeting. Carroll will be hosting the second meeting later in the season. Both matches will be featured at ANEC Sports for this week. And then baseball on Tuesday, the Norwell Knights will open their season hosting the South Adams Starfires. Both teams have not played a game so far this season, particularly due to their schedule of spring break, as well as the weather altering their schedule so far. Both teams have had a history of some success. South Adams with some good pitching over the years. Norwell known for some good pitching as well, and we expect something more along the lines of the same as what we've seen in the past. Norwell won the Northeast State last year. They hope to repeat that success this season at Norwell. It's kind of retool, reload, and move forward for the Norwell Knights. Kind of always been that way with this highly successful baseball program over the years. Those two will meet on Tuesday, weather permitted, of course. And then for softball, which is also going to take place on Tuesday, the Jay County Patriots are going to travel to Decatur to take on the Belmont Braves. Jay County opened their season a 20-0 win over the Marion Giants, but obviously this is going to be a much tougher task going to Belmont against the Braves, who have yet to play a game this season up to this point, as to be expected with their schedule with spring break. This will be their first official game of the season for the Belmont Braves, who have aspirations of trying to win a Northeast State championship and win a sectional title. In both chances, they came close, but came up short, particularly in the sectional where they were seen as kind of a slight favorite in a wide open sectional last year before Norwell won that sectional championship and would go on to play in semi-state that season. So Jay County and Belmont will be the softball game of the week. Baseball will feature South Adams at Norwell, and then boys volleyball will be north of Snyder, and then Homestead and Carroll Homestead for the boys volleyball matches of the week. I do want to briefly just kind of go through real quick. I don't want to spend too much time here, but I do want to kind of just go through and talk about some key matchups coming up across the area. So we'll go ahead and begin with softball and taking a look at softball coming up this week. Some notable matchups coming up. As we mentioned earlier, Jay County and Belmont are going to meet on Tuesday for the game of the week for softball. Cherubusco is 2-0 in the season. They'll be taking on the Cal Barons at the Calb. Busco, also a very promising start to the season, 2-0. The Calb haven't yet to play a game so far this season. On Wednesday, the Norwell Knights softball team will open their season by hosting Southern Wells, who opened the season with a 10-0 loss to Central Noble. South Adams, who won the ACAC last season and made it to semi-states. They're going to open their season also on Wednesday when they host Blackford. Leo, we highlighted them a couple weeks ago. They're going to return off of their spring break by hosting Concordia. Concordia is winless so far this year. Leo 1-0 after their 4-1 win over Woodland. Eastside, having won the NECC the past couple years in the regular season, they're going to be hosting DeKalb as they are off to a 2-2 start. They've played some tough competition so far this year, but did pick up a win over, I believe it was Edgerton, Ohio. I'm not 100% sure. It was a school out of Ohio that Eastside did pick up a win. It might have been, it might have been Eden. But either way, Eastside currently sitting at 2-2 on the season. And then Belmont will be hosting the Bluffton Tigers in that contest as well. Whitco's 2-1 on the season so far. They're going to be taking on the Carroll Chargers in that contest. Northup has been known for some recent success in the SAC for softball. They're going to be traveling to Heritage on the Patriots, who are off to a 3-0 start to the season, and Heritage has looked quite good so far this year with their pitching and with their offense. Heritage notably recorded a nice win over Columbia City a couple of weeks ago, 7-5 against the Eagles. So this Heritage team has aspirations of winning the ACAC and potentially giving Leo a run for the money in the postseason. And then looking at some other games that might take place later this week. Fremont will open their season this week as well. They're going to be traveling to Bishop Dwayne. This is a team that also reached semi-state a season ago as well. East Noble is going to start their games this week. I think they got Whitco or Carroll this week, I believe. No, they got Garrett this week. And then they're going to be taking on Prairie Heights on Friday of this week. Real quick, I just want to make sure I don't forget anything before we move on. Let's see. For some reason, I kind of glanced over this Thursday matchup. Adams Central and Eastside will be playing each other on Thursday at Eastside. I think that's a pretty intriguing matchup between the Jets and the Blazers. That could be an intriguing matchup in Butler. And I believe that's all I have for softball, other than some of these doubleheaders when we play on Saturday, but none of those matchups really catch my eye too much. Now let's get into baseball and looking over some notable games coming up this week for baseball. Angola is going to be taking on DeKalb, where DeKalb has been known as a perennial contender of the Northeast State over the years. Angola split a doubleheader with Southside over the weekend, in which Brady Warren had a nice performance in Game 1, where he recorded 14 strikeouts and helped Angola pick up a walk-off victory over Southside 4-3, although Southside would eventually even the doubleheader, or split the doubleheader, I should say, 16-6 in game number 2. Adams Central is going to Homestead. They're going to take on the Spartans, who played 2 games to start the season against Avon and Center Grove. Adams Central just the 1 game so far. They came against Fort Recovery and a 5-1 defeat at the hands of Fort Recovery. Woodland is at Concordia, Eastside at Wayne Trace, Ohio. On Tuesday, I mentioned South Adams and Norwell is the baseball game of the week at NEC Sports. In addition to that, Huntington North is going to be traveling to Manchester to take on a perennial contender out of the TRC, the Manchester Squires. Huntington North off to a 2-1 start to the season, which includes a 10-0 win over the Northern Bruins, as Huntington North has a new head coach in baseball, but also a nice start for the Vikings. New Haven is at Bluffton. That's an intriguing matchup there as the Bulldogs pitching has looked quite promising so far this season. Garrett has been a contender in recent years in the NECC. They're going to be traveling to Lakewood Park on Tuesday. And let's see here. And then Leo's going to open their season on Tuesday when they host the Wayne Generals. That's another intriguing team out of the Northeast states. Wednesday, Whitco off to a 2-0 start this season. They've looked quite good with wins over Busco, 18-0, and then a win over New Haven, 3-2. They're going to be traveling to Northside, take on a winless Legends squad in that contest. And then Southern Wells 1-0 to start their season. They're going to be hosting Northfield, both 1-0 and both with double-digit wins to open their season. Leo will be hosting Bishop Lures on Wednesday. That's an intriguing all-Allen County matchup between the Bishop Lures Knights and the Leo Lions. Let's see. Huntington North is at Oak Hill against a baseball-rich, it's a story-rich Oak Hill program. I think that will be another intriguing matchup for the Vikings as they look to bolster their schedule in preparation for the Northeast State. And Fremont's got a new head baseball coach following a pretty good run last season. I believe they went to semi-state as well in baseball. They got a new head coach, but they'll be hosting the Woodland Warriors to open their season as Fremont looks to get some early season success on their season leading up to what should be a pretty competitive Northeast Corner Conference. And then on Thursday, DeKalb is at Northup. That is another intriguing matchup for the Barons, taking on another story-rich program in Northup. Lakewood Park at West Snowball could be a sneaky matchup between two local schools in the ANEC coverage area. Heritage is traveling to Van Wert, Ohio. Prairie Heights at Blackhawk Christian. And you got Jay County 0-1 to start the season. They're going to be traveling to Hamilton Heights. And then on Friday, you got South Adams and Belmont. As again, we talked about South Adams opening the season against Norwell. Belmont, another intriguing county rivalry matchup for South Adams as the Starfires look to bolster some early season success and build a good start to the season, considering that South Adams does have a sense of a retool, so to speak. They did graduate some nice talent from last season, including Owen Warner, who became an all-state quarterback and a really good pitcher on that South Adams team. Let's see. And then Adams Central's at Peru. Again, Peru, just another solid baseball program over the years. Bluffton is going to be traveling to Rochester. Rochester 2-0 to begin the season. They had a nice win against Lafayette Jeff last week. So Bluffton's got their hands full against the Zebras. And that's pretty much it in terms of notable matchups for the week. And then we get to volleyball. And with volleyball, we got to include both the schools in our current ANEC coverage, as well as schools that are going to be soon to be a part of ANEC Sports' expansion to 65 schools. We begin with Monday for boys volleyball. Northside looking for their first win of the season, if I recall. They're going to be traveling to Wayne, take on the Generals. Concordia, 1-1 on the season. They're going to be traveling to DeKalb, take on the winless Barons. DeKalb still seeking their first win as an IHSAA program in boys volleyball. And then Belmont will open their first IHSAA boys volleyball season when they travel to Norwell in the battle on 8 Mile Creek, take on the Norwell Knights, who are also seeking their first win of the season. Norwell just the one game so far against Columbia City. It was a sweep, a competitive sweep, but still a loss to the Columbia City Eagles. Belmont looking to get off to a good start in their early history of the program. Norwell seeking their first IHSAA win as a program. On Tuesday, Norwell is at DeKalb. So, again, we're looking at teams that are going to inevitably, for one of these teams, they're going to be picking up their first IHSAA win. It's just a matter of who it will be as the Northeast State kick off their first season of boys volleyball as an official sport for the conference. Snyder is at Northside. Snyder is 6-1 on the season so far, which also includes a 3-2 win against the Homestead Spartans. So that's a very nice signature win for the Snyder Panthers. You got Carroll at 7-4, a battle-tested Carroll squad hosting Southside Archers, who are 2-3. And then on Wednesday, we have the two featured matchups for ANEC Sports, which will be this North of the Bruins and the Snyder Panthers, both coming in 6-1 on the season. Two long-time bitter rivals in the Fort Wayne Community Schools districts. And then we have Carroll traveling to Homestead, take on the Spartans, who are 5-1 on the season, with a lone defeat coming at the hands of Snyder. Woodland 1-2, they're traveling to Concordia on Wednesday. New Haven will travel to Belmont, so the New Haven Bulldogs will travel to the TP. Belmont when they're in their first home opener as an IHSA Sports for boys volleyball. Heritage resumes play, 2-0 in the season so far. They're traveling to winless Huntington North. They are 0-2. They're seeking their first win as well. And then East Noble opens their season hosting their longtime rivals, the Leo Lions, at the Big Blue Pits. East Noble playing their first ever IHSA match as well. Again, a lot of firsts for the Northeast State this season in 2025. Thursday, Wayne is at Northup. DeKalb is at Southside. New Haven at Northside. Huntington North is at Belmont. Another conference matchup there. East Noble will make the trip down to Norwell. And then Friday, we have Southside of Wayne, Homestead at Heritage. Norwell is at winless Bishop Dwayner. They're 0-2. And then Carroll is at Woodland. And then Saturday, to kind of wrap things up on the week, there'll be some in-season tournaments going on, including Homestead. They'll take part in a little tournament as they'll play Harrison and Columbus North. Heritage will be facing New Haven on Saturday. Dwayner will be taking on East Noble. And actually, I forgot to mention Homestead will also be playing Lawrence North in that tournament, as I mentioned earlier. They call this the Big Cat Tournament. So I'm guessing Lawrence North is the host of this in-season tournament. That's it for some of the upcoming matchups here at ANEC Sports, and that is going to do it for the talk around the corner. So we do have a guest for this episode, and this is a very special guest from the Columbia City Track and Field program, as Columbia City off to a very nice early season starts. For the Columbia City Eagles, Ryan Trieschman is the head coach overseeing the Columbia City Track and Field program. Boys and girls have had nice early season starts in their indoor season. The girls taking home the first ever Northeast State Indoor Championship with high aspirations of competing for the Northeast State. And then the boys were competitive as well, right in the thick of things in a very tight indoor meet at Indiana Tech, where ultimately the Norwell Knights took home the boys championship. So we expect another highly anticipated season for the Northeast State for track and field. And we expect Columbia City to be one of those teams in the midst for the Northeast State and having several kids in line for an opportunity to compete in the state finals hosted by Indiana University in Bloomington. So without further ado, here is my interview with Coach Trieschman. And until next time, I say so long. I'm here with the head track coach of Columbia City, Ryan Trieschman. And Coach, how are things going for you on this Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, as you are in the midst of spring break at Columbia City High School in the midst of what looks like an exciting track season for this program?
Yeah, it's nice to have a little time off, give us a little time to recoup a little bit. And then, once we go back, be hitting it pretty hard, 2 meets a week and some pretty big ones. So that'll be exciting to do.
Mm-hmm. Let's first talk about your background into coaching track. Talk about your background into the sport, what got you to coaching track at Columbia City, and then talk about kind of the learning experience along the way.
Well, there's definitely a lot of learning. Coaching has evolved a lot in the last 20 years. I had some fantastic coaches in high school, and I knew that I wasn't going to be a professional athlete of any sort, right? So I really bought into wanting to be a social studies teacher and being a coach of some sorts. I had dreams of being a head football coach, and I kind of let that dream slide. I guess there's always still opportunities out there, but I really fell in love with track and field. So I threw at Manchester College. under Coach Cash Dollar, who is a fantastic coach. Still talk to several of my throwing coaches, Pete Seal and Bo Edwards, who's at Peru High School. Track's a great community to be around. So when I was student teaching at Manchester, I was at White's Residential, and they had a track team there. And that's where I really got to get some good bonds with kids. And Jim Needler was the head coach at the time then, and he ran a really disciplined program, and I really appreciated that. And so that's kind of how I led into, coaching, was just through other mentors. And that's what I hope to be, as a mentor to young men and just kids in general. But 2005, I coached a season of football at Warsaw with the freshmen as a volunteer. And then I joined the Army. And then when I came back, I got into coaching football at Columbia City as a volunteer, which eventually, I think, helped me lead to a special education job. And I taught special education for 13 years. And through that whole time, I was either coaching middle school track or high school football. And then when I came back from Afghanistan, it kind of flip-flopped. I coached middle school for a year or two more, and I was coaching middle school football. And then in 2017, it was my first season at Columbia City High School as the head track coach. So it's been kind of a long journey. There's been lots of bumps in the road, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, man, you got a lot of accomplishments along the way, and your kids have got a nice, talented group with both the boys and girls track teams, with Stratton Fuller and Addison Baxter. That needs no introduction there, with how accomplished these two young individuals have brought to Columbia City. Fuller going to Army for football, Baxter going to Butler for basketball. But you got others from other sports like soccer and football along the way that have been successful so far in track and field, with Kenya Leach on the girls' side, Daniel Mole on the boys' side. You've had several kids from past teams go on to play and run track and field, or even cross country in some sense, at various colleges and whatnot. Talk about some of the kids that have impressed you and your coaching staff so far this year.
Well, obviously Mullet and Gavin Good, they're always top-notch. Distance runners, just in general, are your most disciplined people out there, because they have to go out and run. And so I can always count on the distance kids all the time, because they've trained for this. They have the mental toughness, because, to go out and run when it's like -10 degrees, that takes dedication. So, I really don't like name dropping, because I feel like I'll leave somebody out. But I've got two throwers that are juniors that I'm hoping to have a really breakout season. Lucas Q. Michael and Tucker Reed are up and coming guys. It is nice to have Stratton. That definitely strengthens our team. We've got a senior class of 15 kids, and we got Landon Fazio that's going to have a fantastic season this year. We're hoping that some juniors step up a little bit for us in different positions. We've got some freshmen that are filling in roles that the older guys aren't. So that's exciting too. And just trying to learn the ropes. They're just trying to figure out how to run a race and how to, take the coaching and all that stuff. So I got I think 2-time regional qualifier pole vaulter coming back. He won the conference last year, Austin Henry. So I got Blake McCoy, who was a conference champion and regional qualifier, coming back. So we're just trying to fill in the pieces here and there. We got junior Gavin Smith, who had a heck of a football season. He's going to be running the 300 hurdles. So we got some really, really strong kids. And that's why I don't like name dropping, because everybody plays a part in our program. Because anybody can be called upon at any moment and go, hey, we need you. right? So we train everybody so that they're ready to go. And so that's why even though track is an individual sport and you get a lot of individual accolades, we try to bring that team concept as much as we can. And so that's just me personally, right? I want to treat my star athlete the same way I treat, my JV runner. And that's how we've built our program up.
Yeah, and obviously this is a very deep team, a lot of nice athletes, a group of kids that have experienced a lot of winning in a variety of different sports. We've already seen that in the fall season with cross country, both teams having success this year in conference and in the postseason. Football, we already know football's had a nice year, past several years, I should say, in football. And then obviously boys and girls basketball just won sectionals. And so it's a group of a lot of successful athletes and whatnot. And by the way, just want to put this out there from last week, Madeline Bradbury was named Performer of the Week at NEC Sports because of the Columbia State girls track team winning the inaugural Northeast 8 indoor track meet hosted by Indiana Tech. Coach, normally you have these conference meets in the outdoor session in May. How significant was it to have that type of meaningful event this early in the season, in the middle of indoor season, hosted by Indiana Tech?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good measuring stick of where we're at and where we need to be with our conference opponents. I mean, that just shows our kids that, really, you're running 10 events indoors where the outdoor season has 16, but it's still, if there's a championship on the line, we want to go after it, and that's one of the things that when myself and the other three guys that came with me or were there already, that's one of the things we said from the get-go is we want to compete. We want to compete at practice. We want to compete at meets. And so, for a long time, when other teams wouldn't put their best runners out there all the time, we would line up our best guys because we needed to get that, I don't know, kind of bulldog mentality where you're just going to go after it and you're not going to let go, So, yeah, having that conference meet was really fun. It was good for us. We learned a lot about ourselves and where we need to strengthen ourselves at. And, it'll be interesting to see come like a month from now where we end up in the finals. But I hope that was a driving force for the kids to go, okay, we can lose this thing. I like being the underdog. I like people doubting our abilities and our skill. Just because that gives us a little bit of an edge to push a little harder.
Yeah, and obviously with the NEA indoor meet, it also sets you up for the Hoosier State Relays, which is the annual massive event for the indoor season, transitioning into the outdoor season as a whole. And then obviously we have the Northeast State Conference of really good teams. We talked about the likes of your team, and then East Snowball, always a good program up in Kendallville, and you got Huntington North always having good teams. New Haven at times have had good teams, as well as Norwell. So it's a conference that you could slip up very easily in that race for the Northeast State as well. But I want to talk a little bit specifically about the team as a whole. You talked about the mental toughness of this team, trying to bring down bulldog mentality. What is it like coaching this team?
Yeah, I mean, we've had our kind of our bumps in the roads right now. We definitely got to work on some more mental toughness in certain groups of young men to get to where we need to be. But, we don't shy away from hard conversations. And so, this team has a lot of potential. And I would say it's probably been one of our better teams with depth than we've ever had. And that's saying a lot because, I wrote down a few stats. Okay. So we've had 88 all conference honors since 2017. We've had 83 regional qualifiers. 11 different groups of kids have gotten to go to state, through our program. And, I've been able to go to the state finals every year since 2007. And that's that's remarkable. So these kids have great potential. It's just, I hope when they come back from spring break that they're locked in and ready to go, because we get tested right away at the Northside Relays, which is, a great meet, and it's against great opponents. And now it's our new sectional. So, we got moved sectionals. We're no longer over in the West. We've moved east. And, when we were over in the Goshen sectionals, those were great teams as well. Warsaw, Elkhart, Concord, like really tough NLC schools, and we competed well with them. So I'm hopeful that we will compete well with the Fort Wayne schools, moving forward. But yeah, I'm super excited about this season. I'm ready to get the outdoor going, to get more kids involved, from our young guys to our old guys. I just want to see kids out there having fun and competing. That's what track and field's so different than other sports, right? There's 16 events. So you could find something for someone, right, to be successful at and to show growth. That's what's so hard about football or basketball, those team sports, is not everything's measurable like it is in track and field. Track and field, you can see the growth, where in some sports you can't, or it's hard to pinpoint. So I'm super excited. We should have a good season, I hope.
Yeah, and obviously, with track and field, it really just showcases that individual potential of what they can bring for that in terms of that toughness and the grind to be able to showcase that utmost potential. And obviously, the ultimate goal is to get to the state finals in Bloomington, Indiana, in a beautiful college facility hosted by Indiana University. And that's that's always everyone's goals, to play in that final match, in the final events, so to speak. So I guess my final question to you, Coach, is looking ahead to what's coming up for your program. I know you talked about your team's going to have 2 meets a week and whatnot. What are some of the notable events coming up that fans should keep an eye on when following this program?
Definitely the Northside Relays, which I think is April 19th. And then we'll go up to the Goshen Relays. And then we go to the Kelly Relays as well, which is at Concord. And that's a really neat event because you can bring both your JV and varsity kids. So that's a lot of fun. And then, the final event, the conference, well, not final, but the conference event. And given what the NEA indoor did, I think that's going to be a very exciting track meet that night in May. And so I'm really excited to see, how much growth we can make in the next 4 to 5 weeks, and then go from there. Get ready to get into the state tournament and at sectionals, and see if we can get some more kids to the regionals and to the state finals. So that's pretty exciting. One thing I did want to mention, one of the things I'm probably most proud of as a coach is that I was looking this up today, and I try to hang this stuff up on the board and stuff because we're all about culture building, but we've had 43 academic all-states since myself and my coaching staff, Coach Madison, Coach Goree, Coach Schaefer, since we've been there, and all of us have been in the sport together for over 10 years. And so that's really what it's about. It's about having good people, involved, and that attracts other good people, and so we've been able to keep this culture that we have. But yeah, the 43 academic all states, I'm really proud of that, and proud of the work that our kids do every day in the classroom and on the track. So
Well, I mean, this program has seen a lot of success, and obviously it's set a high bar every year, and we expect Columbia City to be right in the thick of things come May, when conference championships are going to be crowned and state tournament rolls along. Coach, thank you for taking the time to talk about Columbia City track and field, and good luck to you and your team as you get into full force for the outdoor season.
thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the ANEC Sports Podcast. Please like this video and like the page ANEC Sports on YouTube. Let people know that the ANEC Sports is on YouTube. Also like our Facebook page at Around the Northeast Corner and follow either Around the Northeast Corner and Sam Frick on Twitter/X. We're also on Instagram as well. Just look for ANEC Sports or Around the Northeast Corner and you will find us there. You can also follow the man himself, Sam Frick, the founder and editor at Around the Northeast Corner, for other additional content. This has been an Around the Northeast Corner presentation.